You've heard the stories. Stories that most wouldn't believe. Run-ins with something so inexplicable, it changes your reality forever. These are the rare scrapings with the world just beyond our own, where something is waiting, whispering, luring from the dark, and where they walk among us. From shotgun showdowns with red-eyed mimics and reservation witches sowing darkness from the dead, to Scottish ghost girls singing in the storm. Join us on this episode of Belief Hole as we push back into the dark and attempt to illuminate the ever-elusive flashes of the inexplicable and the unknown.
Conspiracy,
synchronicity,
Sasquatch,
homunculus,
alien races,
Satanism in Hollywood, MK Ultra, Tartaria.
There's like a whole, I've been watching this one guy that...
Close the door,
Jeremy, close your door!
What's the,
Inner Earth Disagreements.
Ghost Dad.
I like that movie. Dogman, Bohemian Grove, Magicians Are Demons, Specters and Spirits, Summonings, Paralysis, Strange Disappearances,
Skywhale Phenomenon.
Alternative History, Shadow People.
Shh, quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
It's getting dicey out there. Poltergeists.
That's cool.
Anunnaki. What is the moon? Elf Towers.
I would never talk about it. That's old.
Y2K. Cover-ups. Apocalyptic catastrophe. Vampire.
All right.
Well, hello.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, gang. Welcome to Belief Hole. I'm Chris.
I'm John.
And I'm Jeremy.
And three of us united are the brothers of the Belief Hole.
That's right. And we're here today to take you to a strange place. Yes, a strange place indeed. Many strange places, in fact. Into the walls of people's homes.
Ew.
Into their basement cellars. Into their attics.
Without permission?
And on desert reservations. Because we're going to be telling some strange, scary stories. This is, in fact, Strange Listener Stories 27. And we really do have some pretty incredible stories, very unique accounts this time, and a good deal of speak pipes, which are always great to get. If you're new to the show, we do a few different kinds of episodes here. Deep research, fascinating lore. This kind of episode that we do regularly is, if you're a fan of, for example, Art Bell Ghost to Ghost, or, I don't know, think of some examples. There's a lot of examples. Basically telling real, unique, never heard before anywhere else, allegedly true tales of terror, mystery, intrigue, unexplained phenomena. That's what you're getting here. Stories you won't find anywhere else. Yes.
From our listeners.
Yes. And you will be astounded to find how many people have strange, anomalous experiences, just like maybe you or people you've heard. There are patterns, there are nodes of truth, and they connect to form a greater reality, a reality yet to be discovered. Absolutely.
If you've had an experience, go to beliefhole.com and click the share your story button. We're always looking for more.
That's right. Yeah, and actually this one, I toyed with the idea of doing a sort of around the globe strange listener stories where we take specifically outside of the continental United States stories and find the most varied locations and share stories. I didn't go completely that route, but we do have some international stories today that are pretty excellent. But if you are listening out there and you happen to be a Scotsman or an Irish lady,
A Scotsman?
or a Filipino lad, or wherever you may be in the world and you want to share a story, we will be doing one of those down the line.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
All speak pipes with cool accents. We get so many cool speak pipes and stories from people. Sometimes they're like, could you not use my voice? Or they'll write it in, but they're from like Lithuania. And you can tell the way they write that they would have a cool accent.
Exactly.
And there's just something to hear someone's actual voice, the richness
Great. Yep.
and the beauty.
And the emotion.
Yeah. So if you're from, Uzbekistan, Lithuania, from any place.
Yeah. Anyway, to get into the stake of the episode.
Let's do it.
On this episode, we've got some insane stories. We've got stories about shotgun showdowns with red-eyed mimics, disembodied desert voices, floating faces at the window, and afterlife house parties.
Okay, that sounds fun.
So good variety. Yeah. I will say there is a horrific story coming up in this episode, guys, and we'll give you a heads up when it happens. I think we're going to do it after the break.
Yeah, pretty disturbing.
We've kind of put it off because there's a real darkness to this story, but it is also a fascinating story with, I think, real kind of evidence about, I don't know how you'd say that.
Demonic suggestion?
Yeah,
perhaps
just the existence of something manipulating from the other side, the paranormal. So that's coming up later. It's a tremendous story, but it is dark. So we'll give you a heads up on that one. But yeah, what's going to start off this fire of fear and fascination today, Chris?
Yeah, actually, we're going to start this episode off with a story that will tie in with the final story, that more kind of dark account, because it has some similar phenomena when it comes to, for example, disembodied luring voices. So let's tell this story. This story I call Shotgun versus Red-Eyed Mimic.
Hey guys, this is a story from my childhood that I experienced and my parents experienced also. I grew up in Schosha, New York, which is just outside of Schenectady and Albany. And my grandparents lived in a house that had a few acres. There was woods bordering it, and they had a few outbuildings along a path next to a gully that sort of ran down to a creek at the bottom of that gully. Their house was set back from the road a little bit, but they lived on a pretty well-traveled road on the outskirts of town. When I would visit as a young girl, the adults would want to talk and they would send me outside to play with their dog. The dog Odors lived in a doghouse, which is shocking now, but in the 70s and 80s, it was pretty normal. And I would be sent outside with treats to go hang out with the dog. I loved Odors, and I generally loved playing outside as a kid, but I hated being outside at my grandparents' house. I always felt like something was watching me. A few times I had the distinct impression that something was racing toward me from the direction of the woods or gully or the outbuilding area. I never wanted to actually look at those outbuildings because I always was afraid that something would be lurking around the corner and staring at me, because I just felt like this overwhelming presence anytime I went outside by myself in that house. Years later, my mom shared with me stories about that house after I had talked to her about me being scared when I was a kid. And she said that when she was growing up there and would play outside herself, she would often hear her name being called from the direction of the outbuildings. She remembers it happened a couple times, and she would go inside and ask her mother, my grandmother, why her brothers and sisters were teasing her or where they were. But she remembers the few times this happened, her mother kind of looked at her and said, "They're not home." So whenever she would hear her name being called, there was nobody actually outside to call her. One night, my mom remembers hearing screaming outside, which is unusual in this part of New York State. We have foxes and fisher cats and other wildlife that can sound pretty spooky in the middle of the night. But she remembers distinctly that her and my aunt both heard it, and they were disturbed enough that they woke up my grandfather, which meant it was a pretty big deal because it's not the kind of thing that you would just do on a whim. My grandfather woke up and then woke up their two brothers and went outside with shotguns because they also heard the screaming. They came back in a couple minutes later, slammed the door, told nobody to go outside at night any longer. Apparently, they had seen a pair of red glowing eyes about 8 feet off of the ground in the middle of the field, just sort of hovering there. They had shot at it a couple times with their shotguns, but nothing happened. The eyes didn't move, an animal didn't move, the eyes never blinked. They just shot at it a couple times and ran right back in the house. And these were experienced hunters, and so they weren't going to be scared by something that was just giving off a typical sort of glow in the light. This was something that was definitely spooky. And then the last story from the same house, my uncle and his girlfriend were parked out front of the house one night on the road, and she was supposedly laying her head down in my uncle's lap, whatever. Anyway, all of a sudden, my uncle said that he felt an overwhelming feeling of terror. At the same time he felt this feeling, his girlfriend sat upright and shouted, "We have to go now." My uncle put the car into gear and floored it away from the house. She described feeling as though something was running full speed in the direction of the car and felt stone cold terror. They definitely didn't park outside of the house any longer and take little naps. And then come to find out, my mom said also in this field, there had been pilots who had died from an earlier time period. She said that there were graves that were on the edge of the property right by those outbuildings. And I had actually walked and seen the graves as well. I don't remember who the people were who were buried there, but I remember there being just I would say 4 or 5 headstones from the family who came before. And then who knows if the pilot thing is true or not, but that's what my mom said she heard.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of It's a phenomena. creepy place.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Skinwalker Ranch kind of feel. As far as like you've got glowing red-eyed tall things that are out there. And then you've got the disembodied luring voices. Typical.
Rushing at her, she felt like something was rushing at her from the woods.
Yeah, it's interesting because she says that in the beginning of her account, that she, as a child, would feel the sensation. Then after talking...
Overwhelming presence.
Right, like there was something, this terror that was coming after her, but running, that specific feeling of something running at you. And then when she talks to her mom, that's when she finds out that her uncle was with his girlfriend in the car, and he felt the same sensation that something was running after them
creepy.
in the car. That's just bizarre. So whatever this thing is exuding that same sensation. And it makes me wonder, these things all kind of sound like, some version of the Sasquatch Bigfoot thing, because you have the red eyes, you have the mimicking human voices.
Oh, so when you said mimic, that's what you meant.
In this account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not like a doppelganger, but like mimicking the voice, the luring.
Yeah, this one specifically, I guess, is that lure, sort of by calling someone by name, which I've heard in other sort of Bigfoot-related accounts.
Well, we just did the episode on the Alaskan Mysteries.
Yeah.
I think it was in the expansion we talked about the, not the Nantinak, that's from Portlock.
Oh, the Otterman.
Yeah, Kushtika? Something to that effect. Where that lore behind that is that it can also mimic human voices and lure you out into the wilderness. It's a ubiquitous kind of ability.
Well, she's in New York, and I think that's a pretty northern area. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, New York. So Schosha, New York is a village in Schenectady County. Population only 7,729.
Oh, wow. Pretty rural.
At least at the 2010 census. The 2010 census, and places grow, so it's probably larger. But it looks like a beautiful little village.
How far north is it?
Well, north is relative, Chris.
How close is it to Canada, where the Otterman would be in folklore?
Well, that was Alaska.
Oh.
I think that's more of it's a folk belief, so it can cross, areas, but it's a people-based belief.
Cool. Great story.
For sure.
Leah Buettler, thank you for that story.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. So I was just playing a clip of a fisher cat.
Oh, you found a sound.
Creepy things that sound creepy in the woods up there she was talking about. Fisher cat cry.
It sounds like creepy.
Well, creepy.
You can tell it's an animal, though. It sounds
More like an animal in distress than like a demon in the woods.
Yes, well, let's take a turn here to a different sort of phenomena. But this story relates in the way of grandparents.
What?
You heard me.
Grandparents.
How are you connecting this?
Oh, the last story took place in the grandparents' house.
Okay. Man, so many creepy experiences in my grandparents' house.
But this is not a creepy story. This is actually an uplifting, short little account from a girl whose accent I adore. She's from Poland.
You adore it.
I adore it. I realize this is my favorite accent for a lady. Maybe.
It's the first time I'm hearing this accent.
This is called When You Were Little, You Could See the River by Martyna.
Martyna from Poland.
Hi guys, a big fan from Poland over here. Been obsessed with Belief Hole since a few months. I wanted to tell the story that I actually don't remember this much, but my grandma does very well. And she reminded me it last week. Basically, when I was a few years old, in the family garden behind our house, because we used to have 2 houses, now we live in the new one. But the garden and the swing is behind the old one. And when I was a few years old, my grandma would, just push me on the swing. And then suddenly I told her, oh, when you were little, you could see the river from the swing. And my grandma is like, what? She was like, yeah, how do you know it? I because she was sure, like, I never told you this before because this is such a random memory and it's been so long for her too. And I was like, oh, the great grandpa told me. And she just stood there. She just stopped swinging and she just looked at me and I was like, just giggly little girl, just behave like it was nothing. And she was like, yeah, this was the very first time that you ever said something like this. This never happened again. And yeah, like last week when we were talking about it, she said that it was such a special memory for her because actually I never got to meet my great grandfather, and he was very excited to meet me, but he unfortunately passed away when my mom was pregnant. So every time she thinks about this memory, she's like, I'm glad that he met you in the afterlife. So yeah, this is kind of very reassuring. My great-grandpa seemed to be a very cool guy, did a lot of things for our city. And yeah, I hope that I met him when I was small, even though I don't remember it now. So that's the story. Keep going, guys. Sending love. Bye.
Thank you, Martyna. Was it Martyna? Is that the name? Yeah. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, but Martyna. Martyna, potentially. Yeah, thank you for that account. I like that the grandfather got to meet her, even though he passed away while her mom was pregnant. Yeah. Because he came back to say hello. But he was really looking forward to seeing her being born. Yeah. Or meeting her after she was born. So maybe he stuck around a little while. Well, my other thought was, as a child, what if it was, instead of like him coming as a spirit and visiting her, you know, we've talked about the idea of pre-birth life. Mm-hmm. What if in some sort of like in-between period? So maybe that's where she met him?
Before period?
Before she even got here. I mean, that's an interesting idea. We've talked about that before.
I've heard that a lot. I mean, that family is all together before they come. They all know each other.
Yeah.
But you just forget. You got to put the veil down when you come.
Well, it's like the queue, as they call it, John. If we go to Disneyland or Universal Studios, the line. Yeah. Once you get on the ride, you're no longer in that kind of waiting area. You're all,
right. You're not thinking about the queue anymore.
Exactly. You're covered in slime. In fact, you forget completely about the queue.
Slime.
All rides have slime. Slime and afterbirth stuff.
All rides have slime, Jonathan.
All rides have slime, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It was a nice little... People are like, what is that reference?
If you don't know...
Join the expansion. Yeah, great story. Martyna.
Yes. Thank you for being with us for so long. Sounds like she's been around for a while. Enjoying the whole.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for the stories. These are not all tales of terror today.
I know, it's nice to mix it up.
We've got some creepy ones coming up, guys. This next one is not terrifying, nor is it sweet. It's just one of those ones that make you go, which I love. This is a very interesting story. It'll remind you of potentially Bocce's Radio, if you remember that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Skull Experiments. This is from Sierra, and this takes place at her grandparents' house around 2018, 2019. And this I call the Afterlife Party.
Ooh. I like the little pun there.
Yeah. Life in parentheses. After party, but afterlife party. I get it. You got to, I guess, see it to get the pun. The Afterlife Party. Here we go. This is really neat.
Hey guys, love the podcast. Hearing people tell their stories and hearing the way you guys handle it has kind of given me the courage to come forward with one of my own that I really have only shared with the people that are closest to me. This story takes place in probably late 2018, early 2019. Around that time, my brother and I were helping my grandmother pretty frequently take care of my grandfather, who was in the process of passing away. And growing up, my grandmother's house was totally normal. That nothing ever happened in this house growing up until my grandfather started dying. Specifically, like the 6 months leading up to his death, things started occurring that I couldn't really explain. And it started with this instance. My grandparents only had a 2-bedroom house, and when my brother and I would go down there to help take care of my grandfather, we would stay on a pull-out futon that was in the living room because their second room was used as a home office. So this particular night, my brother and I were staying over, and we were asleep on this futon whenever I woke up in the middle of the night to the muted sound of like a group of people talking. And it was only my brother and my grandparents in this house with me at the time. And I always explain it as like when you are in some sort of like a get together and you're standing in one room and there's a group of people a room over and they're all talking and you can't really make out what they're saying, but you just hear that like jumble of voices. That's what it was like. And I just kind of assumed that I was half asleep. And so I tried to go back to sleep. And I just kept hearing like this dull hum of voices. And I'm not sure exactly how long this went on for, if I'm being honest. But it ended whenever I heard a voice shush them, like very clear, very loud, like a loud shh, very sudden, very strong, and the voices immediately stopped, and it was just silent. Shh. And then a second later, following that like violent shush, a voice said very clearly and very closely, "The veil is thin." And it said that in a whisper. And the moment I heard that, I sat up in bed and looked around the room, and it was dark. Everything was normal. Nothing was out of place. I was looking around. I looked at my brother. He was still asleep next to me. He hadn't heard it. And it freaked me out so bad that I immediately reached over to wake him up and ask him if he heard anything. And of course he didn't. But then when I reached over and I grabbed my cell phone to turn my flashlight on to look around and make sure we were truly alone, the time on my phone was reading 3 a.m. And I know that sounds so made up, but I really don't have any explanation for it. It sounds so cheesy. Anytime I tell this story to others, they think I'm lying because of that fact. But that was just my real experience with that. Yeah, I really don't have any explanation for it. It really terrified me. And to this day, I don't really think my brother believes me. But that's my story, and hopefully you guys can use this. And yeah. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you, Sierra. I think you could tell in her voice, too. You could still hear a little bit of that. You can hear the emotion. Reliving that fear a little.
I love that story. That's such a good one. I mean, yeah. Shh, the veil is thin.
Yeah, she can hear that shushing. But that 3 a.m. effect.
Yeah, I wake up all the time.
And there's always a feeling.
And I always know. The weirdest thing is I always know by the feeling in the room when it's anytime between 2:30 to 3:30.
Exactly. You know when you look at that clock what it's going to say.
Yeah, I know. And I just know that it's like, because I can feel the energy of the veil thinning.
And to me, that points to a reality behind that, not a cheesy aspect to a story that you'd like pepper in there, like, oh, yeah, it was 3 a.m.
Right.
In reality, you hear so many stories and so many authentic people with sincere accounts. That to me, that points to a reality about that time, about there being something about that hour.
It's the problem with the cliche,
right?
You know? Yeah, cliches in general, they're cliches for a reason because they often happen to be true. But because it's so commonplace, they become. Then it almost seems incredible, discredited.
Well, it becomes kind of fictionalized or hyped up. Right. There's a baseline of truth there.
I experience it almost every night because there almost isn't a night that I don't wake up in that time period.
You go to bed at 8 o'clock.
No, I don't. But between 9 and 10.
Do you go potty then? Is that your potty hour?
No, I just
wake up and check in.
There's a feeling that wakes me up, and it usually takes me a good 10 minutes to go back to sleep. I just know it. And it's just accompanied by like very, sometimes more uncomfortable than others.
Yeah.
But it's always a sense of uneasiness. And so, like I said, sometimes it's more uneasy than others, you know, but I just always know that is a time where I am most
susceptible,
vulnerable, open to this other side.
What if there is something what if, like she said, I love that part of the story so much. Shh, the veil is thin. At that 3 a.m. time, what if that's why you're waking up? What if the reason we all have...
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying is like maybe not just because there's necessarily anything in the room or whatever, but just the fact that there is...
Oh, the sensation of the veil thinning.
The sensation of the veil thinning.
Literally what I meant. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just clarifying that for the audience.
Yeah, I wasn't sure that's what you meant either.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything is in the room. I just know that there is an energy during that time period
like
that
a shift
allows for. And you guys don't really probably wake up during that time, do you?
I'm awake during that time. So I was going to say last night around that time, working on editing the speak pipes, you know, tightening them up, going through them and stuff, cleaning them up. And I remember the last time this happened to me. But I made myself jump by working, and it was about that time. And there was for a split second, and I don't think this was a paranormal experience, but just working and being focused and being up late. But there was suddenly a big black figure in the corner of like peripheral vision. We don't know where the basement leads down. That's my peripheral vision. And suddenly there was something right next to me, just for a split second, and I literally jumped. Not all the way out of my chair, but you know, enough to be. And I kind of laughed to myself. For the rest of the night, I was just kind of on edge. Like, what if that was a something?
What is it, 3 a.m. then?
I don't think it was quite 3. It was like 2
2:30 or something.
I feel like,
It's getting there.
anytime between 2 and 4.
Yeah.
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 But 3 in the 3 marker is like the dead heat.
That's the dead time.
The dead zone.
And there is, because, I'm usually up late and either close to that time or past that time. But when I do go to bed normally, when I do sleep, like most of my memories of waking up in the dead of night is 3 o'clock. Like looking at the clock. When I lived in Akron, like almost every night, remember I saw the smoke monster in my room? Every night I wake up at 3:02, 3:11, and I just look over and know it was 3 o'clock. Yeah. You can feel it. You can feel it when it's going to be.
That's usually when I have the most intense dreams too, especially the darker ones. Yeah, like that time is very intense dreams, but then I tend to have more higher level dreams, like positive dreams, but still kind of spiritual into the 4 or 5.
Yeah, early morning.
Early morning range is when I've had some really like beautiful dreams.
The sun's on its way up.
Even with Jake, that's kind of like, it's the couple that I've had of him that have been a little more meaningful always happen like 4 or 5-ish.
Yeah.
Like as you're getting
closer to dawn.
For me, waking up.
Right. Mine is a roll of the dice. I'll get them. I can have terrible dreams right before I wake up or wonderful dreams right before I wake up. It just depends. I don't have nightmares in that time period. The ones that I have in that time period are usually very reality-based relationship, kind of like just more like sad and not like horrifying dark. You know what I mean? Like John quit the show and Jeremy lost his arm in the garbage. Yeah, or like, you're in a room and everybody hates you. All your friends don't like you.
It's not a dream.
What?
This is one of my last recordings in the studio with you guys.
That's true. That's right.
At least for the foreseeable future. I'm moving to Texas.
But we will still have a show.
We will absolutely still have a show.
We're going to have fiber connection. It's going to be just as potent.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
If anything, it's going to continue to get better.
Absolutely. That'll be fun. That's also opens up an opportunity for like fun live events, like getting together and doing like in-person live streams together and, stuff that'll be more, I think, spice things up more for the show.
Yeah,
the world
we need
more.
New spice.
We need spice. Spice must flow.
Speaking of spice, let's spice it up with the next story.
Let's do it. Let's hop it in. Thanks again, Sierra. That was a great story. Yes, thank you, Sierra. We're going to take a trip over to Scotland for this next tale. This comes to us from Becky Hill. She sent this in, and I was not about to attempt a Scottish accent for the entire reading of this, so I didn't do that.
You could have done it.
I thought about it, but then I was like, nah.
I mean, should have just done Sean Connery.
You never know who would get offended by that. For Becky would have a Sean Connery voice. Wasn't he Welsh?
Oh, that'd be very weird.
That's a man.
I just know that that's your voice, and he is Scottish.
You do a good job with that. I think he's Welsh. We'd looked this up before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's not. So, shouldn't even say these things because forever and onward, people will make a comment about this one question. They won't comment if Robot Lady corrects us for them. That's true.
That's true.
Sean Connery was born August 25th, 1930 in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Sorry, is this man Scottish? He's wearing a Scrooge McDuck skirt. It's called a kilt, Jeremy. A kilt. Yeah.
A Scrooge McDuck skirt.
What a terrible thing. I didn't mean that in a demeaning way. I think he looks killer. This will be in the show notes, guys. He looks like a vampire, like Highlander in this with his That's awesome. red medallion. I'd totally rock a kilt.
He was a badass.
He was badass. Anyways, he's Scottish born.
Did you ever see the clip of him where they decided he was Bond?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
What, they chose him in that clip?
Well, it's like a director's story, like how he came in. And,
Oh, cool.
And he was like a panther.
He was like a panther.
He came in and he just like
oozed confidence.
I own this room. And they watched him leave the building. He walked out and he looked like he just owned everyone in the entire street. And they were like, that's our Bond.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's Bond. He was the best Bond. Sorry, Pierce. I like you too. Pierce is pretty good. Anyway, so I didn't do that, but this is a great story. There is one phrase in here that I looked up because it's interesting. She used a phrase in here. She said, my grandma was sparked out, which means like totally unconscious. Oh, spark out. Yeah. I think it comes from like a flame extinguishing. Yeah. But it's a common term over there. So just letting you know.
Okay.
I like that phrase. This is another one, a great one that involves sound and the paranormal. This happened in Scotland in 1987, and this is called Singing in the Rain and the Antlered Watcher. Ew. I have fairly fond memories of the times I spent holidaying in Scotland when I was young. But there's one thing that has always fascinated, confused, intrigued, and chilled me. The first holiday I went up there was when I was 9. My paternal grandfather had died that January, and this holiday would have been in June or July. This was the year where a well-known weatherman had told the UK we had nothing to worry about in regards to a big storm coming. He messed up. So, the storm hit in the afternoon and went on all night. The little stream burst its banks, and it was awful out there. It was one of those storms where you struggle to hear each other's speech, as the rain was so loud. So, it's night, and we'd all gone to bed. It's black outside. No street lights, no outside lights, nothing at all. I go to sleep. My grandma is spark out, probably heavily laced with sherry. So I'm asleep. The only light in our bedroom was from the landing, where my parents would leave the light on and open the bedroom door a crack. I knew I didn't wake up. I was woken up. Something dragged me softly, but purposefully, from my slumber. A voice. I could hear someone. As I became fully conscious, I became aware of a voice outside, singing. A girl's voice, a young girl, a child. I lay there and listened, but eventually got out of bed and made my way to the window. Then I did something I'd never do now and pulled back the curtains to look outside. Nothing. Pitch black. Couldn't see anything. I could hear the rain, but the singing was loud enough to be heard clearly over the top of the racing water of the stream and the powerful rain. The girl was just singing. With bits of melody in between. No other words. Nothing. It seemed to last forever. I wasn't scared as such. I'd say slightly freaked out, as I was aware that what was happening shouldn't be. I tried to wake up my grand, but she wouldn't wake up. And I didn't really want to wake up my parents, as I was worried about getting told off. So, I out on the landing, stood there a minute, still hearing the voice. So I just got back into bed, and the singing eventually faded as I fell back asleep. This has got to be one of the weirdest things ever to happen to me. I've never found an explanation. I told the rest of my immediate family, not sure they believed me, to be honest, but I heard what I heard. One day, I was stood in the living room and walked towards the window. I remember that a huge bird rose up from the ground, absolutely massive. Once the bird had flown off, I looked through the trees into the field and saw this man. Long dark hair, no shirt, gray-green trousers with something tied at the waist. On his head were deer horns. I couldn't tell if he was wearing them or if they were a part of him. He held a staff. I didn't feel scared, just curious, though I didn't go outside. He was looking straight back at me. Looking back, I'd put him in his late 20s. I looked away, and when I looked back, he'd gone. Crazy.
It sounds like she grew up in a magical, creepy fairy tale.
Yeah.
An antlered, green-trousered, shirtless man.
That's what Scotland is, don't you know?
And maybe a spirit of a girl in the rain singing, or maybe a disembodied voice luring.
Yeah.
But either way, it sounds pretty magical.
Yeah, I mean
or just creepy.
Well, let's start with the girl, first of all.
Yes.
That is such a haunting idea. Like, the storm comes, you're trapped. And by the way, this storm, when she mentioned the weatherman was wrong, like, big time, there is a term named after this weatherman who made a bad call on this storm.
This storm in particular?
It's called the Michael Fish moment.
No.
Yeah.
So this is a famous storm.
Yeah. A few hours before this storm in 1987, before it broke, he said on the program on the BBC, he said on that right before the storm broke, about a couple hours before, he said, "Early on today, apparently, a woman rang the BBC and said she heard there was a hurricane on the way. Well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't."
Oh.
And I guess went on to say, like, it's going to be not that bad. And then it was like a record storm. It killed like 19 people.
No way.
Record damage. It was the worst storm to hit Southeast England in 3 centuries.
Don't worry, no storm coming.
Yeah.
Says Michael Fish.
Anyway, well, he did say high winds, I guess, but he did, yeah.
Did he apologize? Did he feel bad? Was it his fault?
He kind of says, well, it wasn't technically a hurricane. Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I'll link the article. See what side you land on.
I guess he could have said there could be.
Yeah, I think it was one of those. But anyways, people to this day will use his example as like a term.
That's got to be an awful legacy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael.
Sorry, Michael Fish.
I hope you're doing okay.
But that's cool because that gives us the exact date of her experience, which is October 15th, 1987. Because anyways, that storm is taking place in these galing winds and crazy rainfall.
Yeah.
She's hearing a girl singing outside. Like what an eerie sensation that would be. And it makes me wonder about, we talk about spirits using water as a medium to manifest sometimes or travel. Like it's a great example of that if there's anything to that.
Also sound. In the pitter patter of the rain, using that white noise to manifest voice.
Right.
Just like in that last story from, was it Leah? Was she the one with the shh?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. That was Sierra.
Sierra with the shh. Veil is thin. That murmuring of voices that she heard reminds me so much of the white noise voice phenomena. That low hum of voices where you swear you hear people talking, you hear music.
Right.
Something manifesting through a white noise sound that is distinctly melodic or human in nature.
Right.
And not just background sound. And then to hear that specifically at the Veil is thin. Anyways, yeah. Sounds like it could be a similar phenomenon here with the singing and that pitter patter.
Yeah, fascinating. Oh, and the last thing I was going to say was the Antlered Man.
Yeah, what was that? Could be a neighbor.
There are groups of people who practice
Druidism,
wearing antlers.
Pagantry. Those are not the right words.
There's a specific group, and I didn't grab this, maybe I'll drop it in, of people who wear antlers in England to celebrate. They're like 1,000-year-old reindeer antlers that they carry around. And it's like kind of contentious because, anyway, I could drop it in, but it's interesting.
There is an obscure horn dance ritual known as the Abbot's Bromley. It's a ritual that's occurred in the heart of Staffordshire, England for centuries. The tradition of using reindeer antlers as the horns for the dance dates back to at least the 11th century. There's been much mystery surrounding the antlers since reindeer have been extinct in Britain since before the Norman conquest. However, radiocarbon dating carried out on the antlers in 1976 provided a date of around 1065 AD. Interesting anecdote, Chris, but unlikely an explanation for this encounter.
But yeah, you hear antlered people and shamanistic rituals, things like that. Of course, Pan comes to mind.
Yeah.
If it was indeed a real entity and it wasn't somebody wearing antlers. But fascinating. Yeah, I'd like to know more about that location, that area.
Could just be a strange neighbor, you know?
Strange neighbor staring in. But the fact that he disappeared like that.
Oh, I didn't notice that part.
Does make you wonder, was it something more supernatural?
Chris, you know what I've been worried about more lately? A different kind of window peeper. Those that peep through the window of the internet.
What do you mean?
A different kind of evil entity, Chris. Speaking of starving your ghouls, there's another kind of ghoul you might want to worry about. Spammers, scammers, and hackers, Chris.
Oh, that's right. The living, breathing parasites, as opposed to the paranormal ones. These ones are nasty living parasites of the internet.
And that's why this episode today is sponsored by Aura.
Yes! That's right.
And there's a lot of buttheads online. And I just got done running one of Aura's crazy helpful, online identity monitoring tools to see if you've been
grabbed and slabbed.
And I found I've been leaking my data on the dark web like a hungry ghost leaks ectoplasm.
Ew.
Yeah, it's gross.
Good metaphor.
Thank you. But it's true. I found that I have 24 instances of my email address and passwords that have been leaked on the dark web.
That's freaky.
Yes, it is. And thanks to Aura, I'm able to get that stuff patched up and not have to worry about it anymore. And their tools run constantly in the back end.
Don't they just automatically send cease and desist?
Well, that's another thing. They have a tool called the Data Broker Removal Tool, which showed me 28 companies selling my personal information. And this is those annoying robocalls, spam emails, everything. And once Aura identifies this, they will automatically start sending opt-out requests for you, so you don't even have to worry about it.
It's like magic.
It just runs in the back end.
That is pretty awesome. Also, when you sign up for Aura, you get features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, if you need such a thing.
If you got kids,
protect them.
And identity theft insurance, all of these different kind of tools for online identity monitoring. If you've ever been hacked or you've ever had your identity stolen, it is a terrible experience. All of these tools come together in one package at a super affordable price.
And if you value privacy like we do, you can go to aura.com/beliefhole to start your own 2-week free trial.
Yeah, guys, we'll have this link below in the description so you can click and access it right away. Super cheap. Start that 2-week free trial. Nothing to lose.
That's right.
Support them because they support us.
If you want to stop data brokers from exposing all your goodies, head on over to aura.com/beliefhole.
Starve those ghouls.
Heck yeah.
Anyway, I say we do one more tale before we take a break here. if you guys are up for it.
Let's do it.
This next story I'm excited about because it's one of those stories that corroborates something that is often claimed to be an easily debunked natural phenomena. For example, sleep paralysis. So many times people say it's a hallucination. You know, it's something that your mind is awake, but your body can't move, and there's some sort of disconnect. You know, the in-between states of the conscious mind.
Hypnagogic, hypnopompic.
Right. But I love this because it's one of these examples where there's corroboration by a very special friend. This is called Tilly the Nightmare Eater. And this is from Abbey McLaughlin in Ireland, 2000 to 2016.
My parents got our dog Tilly a few months after I was born, and we grew up together. As a child, I was super sick. I had papilloma that had to be surgically removed every 2 months, or they would block off my airways. These also didn't allow me to speak louder than a whisper, as they obstructed my larynx. All this leading up to say that I was plagued with nightmares as a child. I would wake up in a cold sweat from the recurring nightmare of drowning or being strangled. Nightmares I was aware were dreams, but felt real, and despite recognizing they were dreams, I couldn't wake up. And when I did, due to my illness, I couldn't make the sounds to scream or shout for help. Often I was too scared to leave my bed to seek out my parents. This is where my loyal dog Tilly came in. She slept at the foot of my bed, a large black collie mix, a mongrel, but a sweetheart. Often I'd be in the grips of a terrible nightmare when she'd wake me up by barking loudly and nudging me. This would also inform my parents of the distress, and they'd come comfort me. This went on for a few years. One night, I had a horrifying dream of being strangled by a snake that was wrapped around my neck. Then I awoke. Strangely, I didn't wake up due to Tilly's barking. This time, I woke up with my face in my pillow and frozen in sleep paralysis. I had my face down, and I couldn't breathe properly, but couldn't move to right myself either. It felt like I was being held down by the shoulders. Then, just as I was losing all hope, I hear not a bark, but a low and honestly blood-curdling snarl from Tilly at my feet. She growled and snarled and pounced on my back before rolling off and onto the floor, snarling all the while. After mere seconds of her hitting the ground, I felt a pop in my head. Like your ears are on a plane, but way more painful. After that, I could finally move freely and got up, panting for air. I ran to my parents' room, and honestly, I don't remember having those suffocating nightmares again after that. She was a good girl. Rest in peace. What I find interesting about that story is you just know your dog's like sounds and what they do so much, and to have a dog react like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
seems like a different dog suddenly.
Yeah. Or just something that's just totally out of the ordinary. Like, you know, something is more going on than just, I mean, obviously it sends something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, you're experiencing
something very threatening.
Well, yeah.
To be growling like that. Very freaky. What else I find very interesting about that story is the pop. You know, it's a very specific experience where they said that their ear popped like it's never popped before.
It has to do with like an out-of-body experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can actually. You're right. That pop sound or feeling when you out of your head and then, sometimes tied into the silver cord. Someone wrote in about that recently. But it also reminds me of, we did that story of the mimic, the childhood friend mimic, where the fence in the field in the liminal space episode. Do you remember right when he got through the fence line?
His friend who was with him, may have been someone impersonating his childhood friend, said, "Did your ears pop?"
Right. Yeah. Well, he first experienced this incredible pop, biggest pop he'd ever, tremendous pop. And, but then, his friend, who he realized later probably wasn't actually his friend, asked him, "Did your ears pop?" "Make sure they pop." In a very matter-of-fact adult way. Just a weird...
Like he had just gone through something other dimensional or something.
And that's reported a lot in paranormal encounters. Ears popping, pressure change, that sort of thing. It's
a different state of existence that you're briefly experiencing.
Right. When that veils thin. Yeah. Potentially.
It also reminds me of that Tilly alerting to that whatever that she was experiencing during the paralysis. It reminds me of we had the pillowcase man. Remember that story from Scott from Freaky Deaky podcast? And that's
How could I forget?
Right. And that's one of the aspects of that story was this was happening, and we looked over, the dog was also
fixated on this pillow, also reacting to this pillow, torso moving. But that's just another
I thought it was a
correlation.
cat. Was it a
Oh, yeah.
it was
it
a cat? Yeah.
Sorry, Scott. I don't remember if it was a dog or a cat. But
For sure it's a cat.
whatever it was an animal that he was close to that was also, paying very
It was
much
definitely
attention.
a cat.
Yeah, you're right. But paying attention to that, noticing that there was something anomalous happening. So it
Right.
wasn't just you. So that having that extra pair of eyes, even if it's, an animal's.
And animals have a good pair of eyes when it comes to strange phenomena.
The second sight.
So it sounds like Tilly definitely saved.
Abbey?
Yes.
Yeah. Tilly, what a good Irish name. It's a great dog name. Here's to Tilly.
Abby would have potentially suffocated if.
Yeah, if Tilly hadn't intervened.
Yeah.
Did she say what time it was? Did she know?
I don't remember. Is that in the story?
I bet it was 3 a.m.
It might have been.
That's when the hag steps through the void.
Tilly was meant to be there.
Yeah.
Dogs are the best. And cats too are good. Sorry. Not saying cats aren't great.
He does this every episode. You're like, cats are good too.
Every episode.
I mean,
how often do we talk about
last
cats and
episode you
dogs?
said the same thing. You said, well, cats are, I don't mean that. Cats are good too.
Well, yeah.
But there's just something about dogs. Then you get a whole war going in the audience.
What's coming up on expansion?
Oh man, what is coming up? I am excited for this one. I've been working on this one for a bit. It's going to be an excellent adventure. You guys ready for adventures? Yeah.
Always.
Okay, good. Because we got a great adventure coming up.
Please keep going.
Do you recall? We covered the excellent work of RD6 Killer Clark. Yeah. I don't know if that was last season or the season before, but her wonderful book, Space-Aged Indians, where she goes and interviews people on different reservations. But it's a fantastic book. And the subtitle, Space-Age Indians, Their Encounters with the Blue Men, Reptilians, and Other Star People. And some of these stories are fantastic. And we did
Reptilians? Reptilians?
Oh yeah.
Really?
We got the Lizzos in there. The Lizzos with their flutes? You know what I mean. Lizards. Bob Lizards. He is not a reptilian. But some incredible stories. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. So you're going to want to join us. If you're unfamiliar with this, it's our member only our member only episodes. You can find on our expansion website,
Beliefful.com. Click the big red expansion button.
Yes.
And we've got hundreds of episodes.
That's true.
So if you ever run out and you're missing the hole, that's where you go.
That's right. Dive right on in. Expand your life with the expansion. All right, guys, we will be right back after this short break.
Access granted.
When I was about 9 years old, I was staying with Mama. I did that a lot. She was my rock. At night, I began seeing these monster men who often roamed around Mama's house at night. I was a night owl boy, had a hard time sleeping, and the summers were so hot, and in the evenings, it was hard to sleep. We had one fan in the house, and it was reserved for the living room. At night, I would go there, relax on the couch, and quietly turn on the fan. Mama didn't allow me to use the fan much. She said it ran up her electric bill, and in those days, even being a teacher didn't pay much. The tribe set the salaries, and teachers were at the low end of the totem pole. I saw the monster men for the first time when I was a boy, but every encounter has been with the ones I call the monster men. They are the same. Always before I saw them, I would see a bright light that lit up the night sky and the earth below. It gave the appearance of a bank of bright lights, all pointed at the windows of the house. After the monster men came, I would watch them as they walked around at night. I would see their shadows as they passed the windows. I was afraid. It took at least several weeks before I got the courage to go outside and check them out. At first, I hid in the shadows, and what I observed were really monsters. They were taller than any man I had ever seen. They walked funny, like when they set their foot down, it came down with a thud. They seemed strange to me, like someone learning to walk for the first time. They walked a lot like toddlers who were unsure of their balance. But they were huge beings walking like that. To a 9-year-old, this was confusing, but at the same time, I was fascinated. I wanted to know where these monsters came from. I wondered if they were demons from hell that the father talked about in church. One night, I heard a frightful sound coming from the barn. I knew something was scaring my mare, Betty. I heard her kicking her stall and neighing loudly. I rushed out the door, only to come within a foot of one of the monsters. He reached down and caught me in one hand.
All right, guys, welcome back from the break.
Welcome back, everybody.
And upon the heels of the break, we have something to share with you.
We do.
There's a fantastic show we'd actually like to tell you about.
It's called the Crime Weekly Podcast, Jeremy.
That's right. Yes, it is.
Crime Weekly combines engaging true crime storytelling with the bonus of a detective's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Levasseur is a private investigator and decorated police detective who has been featured on multiple shows.
That's right, John. And Stephanie Harlow is a true crime content creator who is freaking obsessed with context, which is so important, as you guys know. The who, the why, the where. She wants to know everything and share it with you.
Together, they cover crimes from the headlines as well as lesser-known cases, and they discuss them in depth from start to finish, leaving no stone unturned. And with over 8,000 five-star reviews.
What? That is a ton of five-star reviews.
That is actually quite impressive. If anyone out there really enjoys true crime, this is definitely one to check out.
Yeah, in the vein of true crime, we cannot recommend this enough, guys. These guys, Derek and Stephanie, they've tackled some really highly publicized cases some of you guys might be familiar with, but maybe with some information you might not have heard. Cases like the West Memphis 3, Adnan Syed, and Lori Vallow. And even lesser-known cases like Connie Debate and Danielle Redlick.
So very similar to the belief hole, they spend a lot of time deep down in their rabbit hole with deep research. They have multi-part series with episodes that range from an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So a good amount of time getting down into the crime.
I also like the relaxed atmosphere. It feels like you're just sitting around with a couple friends discussing the case. Cozy, if you will. I also like that they don't always agree. You know, it's good to have some healthy debate, just like we do here.
Absolutely.
And you can listen on all platforms, including YouTube. And we'll have a link for you guys in the show notes. You can click right to it. Every week, a new episode drops, and you'll learn something new every time, including how to better protect yourself and the people you care about.
Well, that's cool.
Crime Weekly is a podcast you're going to want to listen to, and it's one we can't recommend enough. Listen to Crime Weekly every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, and make sure to tell them that Belief Hole sent you in the comments section.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah. All right.
What's next on the docket of strange, Chris? Good question. Let me pull it up here.
Oh, you know what? I know what it is. All right, guys, this is the one we warned you about.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good story from a listener named Holli. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, but it's just so dark. It was hard to find a place to put this one. So warning, this is dark. It deals with some heavier concepts such as suicide.
And infant homicide. I don't know how else to say that in a more clinical term.
It does?
For ritualistic purposes. That's a very brief mention in the beginning.
But that's not part of the story.
No, it's not part of the story. It's an anecdotal thing in the part of the atmosphere of the location.
Right. But regardless, it's a heavy thing. This fella, Holli, is a paramedic, and he's been working here on the Navajo Reservation. So he's been kind of surrounded by some strange phenomena, specifically native to the reservation there, and the uniqueness that comes along with that kind of environment. And this is one of the accounts that he shared with us so far.
Yeah, this is an area where there's rumors of ritual magic, and he's experienced firsthand as a paramedic some of the aftermath. It's very small, 5,000 people in this community.
What reservation?
He didn't say.
Okay, but it's in Texas?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's hear his own words.
Let's do it.
This is called The Puppet Master.
Well, hey there, fellas. Go by Holli, Texan paramedic. I was contracted about a few years ago here, working in one of the reservations. And for about 100 by 100 miles, we had about 5,000 individuals living there. So very, very rural, isolated place. And just a heads up, these stories can be pretty dark. We'd have a bunch of paranormal things going on out there, and some of the guys from Louisiana would say witchcraft. Well, you'd get stuff like, going 100 down dirt roads and you get coughing right in your ear, middle of nowhere, or you're out isolated in prairie and you'll have someone whispering to you. I've had voices of friends whisper to me who live 2,000 miles away. I've had old men telling me to kill my partners, just weird stuff like that. We had one where one of the crews responded out and a group of individuals were cutting up and using the blood from an infant. I think he was 10 months old. And that really set the tone for a lot of people from our crews. But anyways, that's the sort of stuff that'd be going on up there. And my story was, we had a young fella, he took his life, and it's about a 2-hour drive to go respond to Gift, because we did bio-retrievals, because there's only 3 coroners on the res. There's one at the hospital, the only hospital, and there's 2 that work in their individual villages, and both of them fellas don't leave their village usually, so most bodies were taken. Well, this fella, he had been recording himself in the act. His wife had left him taking his kids, and he just couldn't take it. So he hung himself, and he was recording it and gonna send it to his girlfriend, I suppose. Well, hell's issue here is that when we watched the video, it was already sent to the girl. It was sent around the time of his suicide. We only found the body about 5 hours after it happened. So somehow that message got sent after it was done recording. And so the mother showed us it and made us watch it there on scene, because we had to wait an hour for an ambulance. His sister tried to cut him down. His body broke her arm, so we ended up transporting her too, but we were waiting for a second unit so that she didn't have to be in the bus with her brother's body. But while waiting there, Mom forced us to watch it, and in the video, the fella had, it was real dark, but had a strange grin, and there was a face right behind him. And it was real murky. It's been a while, but it looked pretty ghastly. Older lady, I'm not too sure. I didn't see it as clearly as some of the others. Louisiana girls, they saw it real clear. But somehow that video got sent out right after everything was said and done. Even though he was gone and family didn't find him until the morning. So just figured I'd share that. I know it's pretty morbid, and I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It's just kind of something that's been in my brain for a while. So thank you all, brothers, very much, and y'all take care.
Thank you, Holli. It's a heavy story. A horrific story. Yeah. Yeah, so, man, I can't imagine that.
It's not surprising to hear the influencing of dark entities on especially suicidal type situations. I mean, that seems like...
It would be like a good food.
Yeah, I think that stuff does go on where there's this invisible world that influences people to do things.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of times people will say like, well, that's people trying to not take responsibility for their actions, but obviously there is a good mix of that being a reality in many cases, I feel like. Where it seems pretty obvious that there's a darker force. Yeah, that people can be preyed upon. Yeah, from the other side. And with everything going on, it sounds like there is a dark magic in the area too that might, affect the kind of atmosphere there. I mean, the voices, hearing voices on the road. Well, that was super interesting to me, that the concept of the driving your paramedic vehicle, your ambulance, 100 miles an hour down a desert road, and then hear someone whispering in your ear, coughing in your ear.
Desert's such a creepy place for that too.
Yeah.
Emptiness.
Magic just drifts on the wind out there like dust. It's so funny because that reminds me of, in different parts of the world with jinn, right? You have the same sort of whispering, luring kind of voices. Again, disembodied voices again comes up again in the episode, but mimicking, Yeah, just creepy stuff. Yeah, so to be clear, for those of you who heard this, because I've heard the story a few times, and the real key to that, as far as, beyond the morbidity of it and the darkness, is the evidence kind of it, which is that the video, he filmed the video, but someone sent that video to his...
Could it have been on like a timer or something? Some sort of software that would send it?
Potentially. I'm not familiar with any forward sending. So maybe he downloaded something specially to send a message after, but you have to stop the recording. So it would have to be software that would stop the recording and then send it to a pre-programmed number. It's not impossible. I'm not sure what year this happened.
Yeah, that kind of depends. I mean, I think nowadays that wouldn't be impossible.
Yeah. The other option is the idea that maybe someone else was on scene at some point and sent it for him.
That's true.
But I feel like they maybe would have investigated that. Also, the fact that there was the face behind him.
That's super creepy.
With a grin. And he had a ghastly grin. Wasn't that the thing? Like he was almost like he was taken over. He had that kind of grin. And then he said the face behind him was a ghastly sort old of woman, hag kind of thing.
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, let's not spend too much time on that story.
No, but thank you for sending. It was important to tell. I think we have a couple really fascinating and I think important submissions that are pretty dark that I have just I keep putting on the back burner because our show's not very dark. I don't love to get into the super dark stuff, but sometimes when it's, I think you can couch it in the stuff that we do, the kind of, balance of the lighter stuff and the positivity of the show and the humor. But I think it's good to balance it with the reality of some of the dark stuff at the same time. So you can, take your medicine with some sugar. There you go. Teaspoon. But thank you, Holly. That was fascinating story.
Hopefully it gets a little bit off your mind, the fact that you can kind of share it a little bit and let it go.
Yeah. Hope it's not all darkness out there for you. Yeah, and thank you for working that job. I mean, that's a job I could not do.
For sure.
Yeah, and if you're out there and you're feeling down, talk to somebody. Yeah, absolutely. Starve those ghouls, man. Yeah, starve those ghouls. This next one is called Dirty Face at the Window, and it's not too dark, but stick around for the final story after that, which will involve maybe some fairy lovemaking. This story comes to us from Lithuania, and they requested that we not use their names, so they will be anonymous for this account. And this happened around 2003 on one quiet winter evening. This is called Dirty Face in the Window.
Back in around 2003, I was 7 or 6 years old, and my sister was a year younger. We lived in a small town in a big 2-story house with a big yard. It was an early winter, around 7 p.m., already dark outside. Me and my sister were playing in the living room when we heard someone knock on the window. We were startled. It felt like time had stopped until we made a decision to open the curtains. I took one side and started to pull them so we could see what was knocking. I pulled it a little, just enough to see a man's face covered in what looked like dirt or clay, just looking at us. The house and the window is quite high for a ground floor. For the face to be seen in that section of the window, a person would need to be about 8 to 10 feet high. We got scared like never before and ran to the kitchen where our parents and grandparents were talking and making dinner. We went on to tell them what happened, and they became unusually angry at us and made us go to bed early that evening. We've never made stuff up, and it was rare for our parents to be upset at us for anything. Sometime later, we found out that my father's brother had been missing for a while when this occurred, and his body had been found in a ditch of clay and mud, frozen to death, miles away from our town. Me and my sister, now 27 and 26-year-old adults, still swear to this day that what we saw that evening was real, the face of the apparition of our uncle.
Wow. Interesting short story there. Yeah. I mean, the crisis apparition. I mean, that's a classic crisis apparition. The spirit of someone appearing to you. Appearing, at the moment of their death or right before their death, right after their death. Yeah. In a spirituous form. As in a crisis situation. Yeah.
It's just like when the laws of the universe just don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
You have this person that obviously died, and he shows up at the relatives
at the window floating off the ground.
Like there's a weird, something you can't explain going on there where he's drawn to people he probably loves the most.
Yeah.
And in the same fashion, he's seeing, they're seeing the way he died in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no time. it's just a weird coming together of two worlds.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, John. It's interesting because you hear stories, and we've done stories before where, of course there are accounts where someone comes to visit and you don't see any disfigurement or any clue of how they died. And then you have other stories where like, oh, he didn't have a head or something, where a kid's telling about, he saw this man in a white t-shirt come in and he had like blood on his face. Oh, Uncle Jim died in a white shirt that night. So it's interesting. I wonder why sometimes this and sometimes that.
Maybe sometimes if it's more traumatic or unexpected, and sometimes it's more an older person.
Who's to say, like, where you would, if you got in a car accident and survived, you'd be in shock, right? Mm-hmm. Find yourself wandering down the road. Who's to say that shock wouldn't be a similar, like a carryover into the next
I think
existence?
That's kind of the idea.
Take some time.
It takes some time to realize what happened.
Yeah.
For some people.
Yeah, that's definitely seems to be the case a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of psychics lately that deal with this stuff. And it seems to be, there's definitely a transition from the point of death. And a lot of times it takes a long time for them to realize, especially if it was a traumatic death, for them to really realize what happened.
Yeah.
And the fact that when you transition over, you have abilities beyond just the physical body, even if you don't fully understand that yet.
Yeah.
So the mental imagination can maybe just immediately teleport you to a place, even though you're not
in control.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're basically manifesting.
You think and you go.
You create one of those Donnie Darko portals.
Even though you're not even sure that that's what you're doing, it's just once you leave the body, you have instantaneous access to things.
Even though you don't know what you're doing.
Well, that's what's his name? Robert Binaural Beats?
Robin Rowe?
Robin Rowe talked a lot about that when he was doing all of his experimentation in Journeys Out of the Body in that book series, where when he was practicing this, once he was able to go through, it was a think and you go kind of process.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. That's how it was when I had my OB.
Yeah, there's no physical boundaries anymore.
Exactly.
You move at the speed of light, speed of imagination.
Yeah, and if you combine that with someone who is essentially completely unaware of their situation,
they didn't even know they died.
And you get what many cultures refer to as the wandering ghost, which is someone who just appears almost zombie-like or in a state of confusion and trauma.
Think about a dream.
Yeah.
There's so many times in a dream where you don't know you're in a dream.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time.
A non-lucid dream.
But it's, even though it's so bizarre, you don't really you're not like, oh, I'm totally dreaming right now. You're just in it, experiencing it. And I do kind of feel like
that's life.
That happens sometimes with death, where you just you transition quickly, you don't really know it, and you're still in that state of not fully understanding what had happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have the instantaneous ability to manifest things on the other side.
It's like having a superpower and you don't realize you have it. I often wonder, when Uncle John...
I often wonder.
I
do ponder
when
at
Uncle
times.
John died and we were staying in his apartment and we had all the strange things. Like I would have those 3 long scratches on me a lot when I wake up, sleeping in his bedroom.
It's pretty dark.
But I'm wondering, I often wonder...
He was a very scratchy person.
Well, sometimes I wonder if
you'd hear footsteps on the stairs.
If we don't know, footsteps on the stairs, a lot of stuff. If we don't know how the physics over there work, is it possible that sometimes when a seemingly violent thing happens here, it's because someone on the other side is trying to contact you that might not be a demonic entity necessarily? It's easy to look at like a scratch and be like, oh, that must be from the devil. When what if there is you don't know your power? Think of Patrick Swayze in Ghost, and he's trying to
well, that's a true story.
Get his power going with Whoopi Goldberg or whatever, and then maybe he gets too good at it, and then ends up. It's just a theory.
But I think the scratches are
obviously that ties in with a lot of dark stuff. I'm just saying. Is it possible to not know your power?
Well, like footsteps.
Or not be aware that you are in this that reality.
Right.
And trying to interact with someone why can't you see me, cause something to fall over?
I do think that, as far as physically affecting the world around us through intention from the other side, I'm sure that like the ghost, Patrick Swayze idea, there is some, I think, truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my guess. I haven't been to the other side, but for everything we've looked at.
What do you think, guys? I don't know.
Tough questions.
Yeah. Well, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do our final story here. This was an interesting addition, a speak pipe we've received from Ingrid, and it involves a curious case of fairy
nudity.
Well,
I heard there was nakedness.
There's nakedness involved, but fairy luring.
Oh, nice,
if you will.
Fairy intercourse.
Well, I don't think that happens in the story.
It says it on here.
I just added that so you'd be like, oh, that sounds fun.
So Jones, stay invested. All right, let's play this up. Let's roll tape. This is called Fairy Fun in the Fields.
Hi guys, my name is Ingrid. I need to tell you about some really really weird stuff that happened to me during my lifetime. Well, I've had everything happen to me that you can imagine. Some of the weirdest would be close encounters with UFOs. And I'm talking like right above my head, 25, 30 feet. Missing time, orbs, strange apparitions, shadow people, all of it. It's poltergeist, doppelgangers. Oh my God. It's like, why have I been so tormented my whole life? But I want to tell you something really weird. Because I know you guys like the very high strangeness. And I mean, I really think like the UFOs and missing time is very weird, and the dreams and the sightings and all of that. But this is so much deeper, and I can't figure out what this was. It's almost like a fairy, or I guess the best I could say would be like a fairy experience. So I grew up in northern Minnesota, out in the middle of nowhere. And literally our closest neighbors were at least a mile at the closest away. And I grew up on the very edge of the Superior National Forest. And if I could show you, and I'll try to send you a picture, like an aerial picture of where I grew up. But we had 120 acres with river going through it, and like 8 miles surrounding us of nothing. And one time I had my best friend at the time. She was 2 years younger than me. So I would have been 16, she would have been 14-ish, and my youngest sister would have been around the same age, 14. And the three of us decided to camp out in the backyard. And it was a beautiful midsummer night. I'm thinking June, July, somewhere around there. And we were camping with this really rigged up tent out in the backyard of my parents. We were having a sleepover. And I remember, like, we couldn't sleep that night, we were just wired up for some reason. And it was there was like this crazy ass meteor shower happening. And so we were watching that. And we were telling stories and talking and being silly like girls do. And at some point probably around 3, 4 a.m., I don't even know. This is so stupid. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you guys this, but we started dancing around, running around. It's almost like we were like possessed by an energy. We were running around the fields. It was a full moon, and we were dancing around naked. I mean, I'm just embarrassed to say that for whatever reason, but we were in the fields and just acting goofy and having fun. Anyway, the moon began to set through the river valley. So I'm suspecting it was the reflection of the sun on the other side of the earth. When the moon was setting, it made the moon turn just blood red. And I said to my sister and my friend, I said, look, oh my God, you guys, check out that moon. It just turned red, red, red. And it set really low. And then we began walking around the edge of the fields. And this was about the dawn time. And I remember like seeing the first star. And I said, hey, look, that's the morning star. That's the planet Venus. I was kind of a dork, and I knew, astrologically what we were looking at. Anyway, we got along the edge of the field, and I heard noise. And I said, guys, stop. Listen. And we started to listen, and I heard, like, this music. Now, remember, we lived in the middle of nowhere. Like, we didn't have close neighbors. And it was like 4:30 in the morning in the middle of summer. And this music, this ethereal, oh my God, it's so hard to describe. If you ever saw the movie Robin Hood, when, you know, the one with Kevin Costner, when the people were dancing around the fire and they had like the pipe, what were they called? Like, like just the medieval pipe fifes. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. And tambourines and whistles. It sounded like that. But there was like almost like a synthesized, computery. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to describe. Like this weird music. And I said, "Do you guys hear that?" And then we all stopped and we were listening. And it was coming from a part of our property where the river actually turns north and starts flowing, which I have subsequently read that where water flows north, there's something supernatural about it. Anyway, my friend Alicia and my sister were listening, and they both heard it, you know. So it wasn't just me hearing things. Like, they were all like, "Yeah, we hear that." And it was super creepy, and there was something like drawing me to that music. And all I could picture was like these people dancing around in a circle. And I said, "Hey, let's go check this out." And I started to walk away, and my friend Alicia grabbed me by the arm and she said, "Ingrid, no, don't go." And it stopped me, and it kind of made me like get my senses together. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." Because, I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be anything. Like, what if it's some weird cult of like something evil out there? And whatever. I mean, that was just me getting paranoid, and maybe she was right. Maybe it would have been a bad idea to go. But to this day, I'm like, I wish I would have gone and checked out whatever was causing that. And anyway, we all just stopped and listened, and were super overwhelmed, like emotionally and physically, like just wanting to go to this music. And it really creeps me out. Like, what was that? Was it some sort of Midsummer's Eve, like Wiccan ceremony going on? It didn't seem like evil to me in any way, but very mystical. And I mean, it's kind of like the Ouija board where you're drawn to it, yet it could be bad. So I know it's a weird story and whatever, but it was real. And it was not just me experiencing this. It was my sister and a friend. And we still talk about it to this day. And we are still like, whoa, that was super weird. There could have been nothing out in the middle of the woods. Like, people. Unless it was some weird cultish thing, I really felt like it was paranormal. And I had to share this with you guys. And I love you guys. I listen to you constantly. And I am going to become an expansion member because you guys, I just can't get enough of you. So I hope you play this. It is so weird. There is weird stuff in this world. So thank you for listening. Bye.
Indeed. Well, no matter what that was, that's absolutely true. There is weird stuff in this world.
Yeah, it was a great story. Very captivating.
Yeah. Excellent. And totally believable to me with all the stuff we've talked about. Disembodied voices, fairy encounters. Well, specifically that she references the Midsummer Eve, which is a time...
You can just feel that energy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that it's a time when the boundary between the spirit world and our world is thought to be thin, a lot like Halloween.
And the youth, too, of your just...
Yeah, that's a time, too, when you're,
just
the hormones are going
and you're just
experiencing things in life for the first time, and there's a lot of energy built up in that, and then, of course,
It's weird, the moon turned blood red.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are stages of moon like that. I've seen. The other night actually was pretty intense like that. Yeah. Giant blood red moon. But here, at 4:30 in the morning, it sounds like a classic fae encounter. Yeah. Well, some people believe that fairies are actually most active on Midsummer's Eve. Really?
Mm-hmm. At 3 or 4 in the morning.
I don't know if this took place specifically there, but maybe. I think it's interesting that like, it's almost like the music that we have that book. I forget what it's called, not paranormal music, but we covered in an expansion all about high strangeness music. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that it almost like it replicated what they were doing, as if something was watching them dancing naked, almost in this sort of medieval way, and then created a musical landscape to entice them, related to what they were doing previous to that music playing. Or they were doing, maybe the reason they were encouraged to do that was because
it could be
right on the other side of the veil, this was happening. And so we didn't know why. We felt so, with this strange energy, we just felt like basically taking off our clothes and dancing around in the circle. And again, the connection with the fairies is often the Midsummer Eve. The sightings of fairies are typically and traditionally dancing around in rings under a full moon. So, I mean, all of those connections are there specifically for whatever the fairies actually are, whatever this thing is, that luring.
Yeah. Good thing you didn't go back
And the
there.
music too. The music is a very specific thing as well.
Yeah, I feel like it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
You know, the good or bad.
Right.
It's on that borderline, the way she describes it.
I mean, the old timers warn you not to mess with the fae or the fairy folk. You leave them alone. The hidden folk, the Hulda folk.
It sounds like they were luring them. That's my guess.
Yeah. But maybe for fun time and friendship. Naked fun time. I mean, it's funny because all that we've looked into with fae and have reported on stories, they definitely they occupy what seems to be a fairly neutral position. But that problem with neutrality is it doesn't really care about you. Yeah. So if something's going to happen negative to you, the fairies might not care. It's like the AI robot at the Amazon factory that just puts its arm through your body on accident. Right. It doesn't know. It's just doing its job. Yeah. But it doesn't mean he's doing it with ill intent.
There's no humanity there.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is with these, whatever the fae are, or the elementals or whatever, there can be these things, if they do exist, can take an interest in you and then can even develop, I'm sure, friendships or fondness. But at the same time, that may not be their default setting. It could just be whatever I feel like doing, like the Pan idea of the trickster. Yeah. So you're really taking a gamble if you're going to do the dance and follow the music. It's like the old gods, that idea, like humans are below something else.
We are a bug on the windshield of life.
Yeah, maybe slightly more than that.
No, I've heard that analogy for like demonic stuff.
Oh, right.
That's how they view humanity.
Just pieces of snot that get stuck.
They literally look at us like when we're driving and we wipe the windshield because a bug splattered. That's how they view us getting in the way of things. They're just like it's not even like they even think about it. Yeah, that's an intense analogy, but I've heard that before, where it's just like
an annoyance.
Yeah, and it's not even like like I hate this thing, or it's just so like you're nothing. My windshield, wipes it off.
Which is why it's so crazy, the idea of making a deal with demons or that kind of thing. Like we're going to have this deal together. It's like, no, they basically are like, you're a check I'm cashing in, like I don't, anyways.
Yeah, you're not even expendable. You're not even there.
Yeah, and that's the darkest.
Yeah, pretty dark. I think humans are great, though.
I think they're very good. Great. And last thing I was going to say about the fairies. Oh, by the way, I did just buy the Fairy Census 2 book compilation. Oh, yeah. So we will be doing another fairy episode. Well, people have been asking more fairy-related episodes, and dark fairies, light fairies, all the fairies in between. Yeah. Pretty fascinating. The corroboration between different accounts over time. Mm-hmm. The 40 Times has a great write-up on it. I'll probably introduce. Yeah, I do think there is a reality to that world. However, and that's the thing, too. You look at, like, we've covered the Norse lore, going back to our ancestors in Scandinavia. And same idea.
A Viking way.
These elementals, these things, the Hilda folk, the hidden ones that live just beyond us. And you leave offerings and those kinds of things to appease, keep them neutral or friendly, maybe help you out depending on the cultural tradition. But yeah, there's always a risk. Yeah. With these things.
Starve your ghouls and stay away from the fae folk.
That's right, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Yes. Another strange listener story in the Belief Hole bag.
Well.
I suppose it's a very special time in the show, John.
It is.
This is the time when the Skywhales come to roost. That is the sound of a skywhale. We have a couple of very special Skywhales to announce today, my friends, and they have been a long time coming. A couple of people left out in the cold that we had missed previously that we wanted to get out there. And if you guys haven't heard your name yet, definitely let us know if we've missed it. But today, my friends, we have first on the docket of Skywhales, Tina Gunter.
Yay!
Yeah!
Tina Gunter?
Yes, upgrading her patronage, her membership from a shadow person of interest in the past to the grand title of Queen Skywhale.
Give her a stinger.
Skywhale Rider! Skywhale Rider!
Awesome. Thank you, Tina. We deeply appreciate,
sincerely,
our Skywhales. They are our second family.
Absolutely. It means so much to us.
Do we have another one?
We do. We have one more. And this name might sound familiar because he actually purchased a stinger for his lady Shay. This is Patrick Olson.
Skywhale Rider! Skywhale Rider!
Patrick, we remember you, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you, my Skywhale Rider friend.
Thank you to Shay as well for being married to you.
Shay-rific. For being his lady.
Yes. Thank you to both of you for supporting the show. And I love doing that stinger. That was so fun. And people actually really like that one. So
that was a great stinger.
Probably because Shay is so awesome.
Yes. Shay, Patrick, and Tina.
Shay, Patrick, and Tina.
All great, wonderful people in the whole. So thank you guys so much. That extra special support does really mean a lot to us.
And now we have a lot of people to thank. Probably.
Yeah, we got to catch up on. It's been a tumultuous time in the whole, so we got some people to thank for sure. So without further ado,
here we go.
Thank you too. Oh, I know this name, Dylan Beyond.
Oh yeah,
how do I know that name?
YouTube
chat
premieres. Yeah, welcome Dylan.
Thank you to be here, Dylan.
Yes.
Dogman Whisperer Jeremy.
Yeah, I was about to say that, John. Okay. Thank you. Now that you have access to the list, you think you're so cool and high and mighty.
I gotta double check you.
I appreciate that, but I don't need it. Timothy Jarrett is also a Dogman Whisperer. Yes.
What if Timothy Jarrett had a ferret named
Garrett?
Garrett.
A ferret named Garrett.
Well done.
Timothy Jarrett had a ferret named Garrett, and he walked him down the street.
And then the dog grabbed it and teared it.
Tore it apart, and now it's at my feet.
It's awful. Please add sound effects to that story.
I wanted to say parrot.
Parrot, there you go. Sure.
But I just don't have the gumption.
Good job, Chris. Anyway, that Timothy
what if Timothy Jarrett had a parrot named Ferret?
Yes. I don't think anyone would believe that.
That would be confusing, wouldn't it?
It's a good children's book right
I have
there.
a ferret named Parrot.
Yes.
Gets confusing, doesn't it?
Yes, John.
Oh, this is quality.
Let's continue this conversation. He is a Dogman Whisperer.
Dogman!
And so is Andrew Brohofer Lohofer.
Brohofer Lohofer.
Andrew Brohofer Lohofer. I love it.
That's awesome.
Exclamation
Yes.
points.
I dig it.
Another Dogman Whisperer.
Another Andrew. That's my middle name.
Welcome to be here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Jorge Vaquero.
Ooh.
Hi.
Welcome in.
It's a sultry name.
See Dogman? That's a Dogman too, right?
No, it's not.
Or
Black Eyed Cool
$88.
Kid.
Sorry, you don't get that. Take it back. Well, Black Eyed Cool Kid.
Yeah, but we appreciate that anyway.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in here.
Daniel de la Rosa.
Ooh, that's pretty.
Swashbuckling kind of name.
Suave. I guess just say suave because it's a man.
It reminds me of Zorro. Rosa.
Welcome in.
Hello. my culture goes very deep.
My culture.
My cultural connections. Jess Mace is here. Jess Mace is a
Weapon from medieval times. Welcome
shadow
in.
person of interest.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, I haven't had one of those in so long.
Those are so rare, and we really do appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you, Jess.
You're awesome. Ditter. Hey, Ditter.
Oh, I like that.
Hey, did her.
It's friendly. It's like Skeeter.
Did her do it?
Did her do it? Put her to it. Welcome to have you, Ditter.
Yes.
Welcome to have you, Ditter.
Thank you. Thank you to be here. Rhodey and Gina. Oh, a twofer.
Yes.
Hi.
Sneaky.
You only get one.
Sneaky.
You try to put two names in there. You think you can just put two names in there, Rhodey and Gina?
That'll work.
How dare you?
I applaud you for using the system. We put it in place. Welcome to be here. Patrick Painter.
PP. What's up, PP?
What's up, brother?
Oh, wait, I know Patrick Painter.
I was going to say, that name is really familiar.
I had a conversation with him. I think we had email back and forth.
Excellent.
I think we had email.
Yeah, no, Patrick Painter.
Did you have email together?
No, I don't want to give any information away, but yeah, we had remember he's the guy that offered
he's the guy.
very nice treat for us.
I'm lost. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to talk to him. We'll talk to you about this later, Chris.
I don't want to say anything online.
It could lead to a cool episode is all I'll say.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Patrick, what's up, man? Thank you again. Thank you for the very generous offer, and hopefully we get to meet sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be great. Cool. Elizabeth Boyarski, welcome to be here.
Nice, Elizabeth.
So glad to have you, Elizabeth. That's a cool name, Boyarski.
Boyarski.
Yeah, that is cool. It's got some buoyancy.
It's like a cool pasta.
It bounces.
Top shelf pasta.
Okay.
Evan Leatherwood.
Oh.
I am buying a belt buckle at your store at the saloon.
Yes.
What is the
very
is
Western.
that Dogman Whisperer?
That is a shadow person of interest.
Holy
Oh my
moly.
gosh, shadow person of interest. You special person. I can't think of a better.
We need
thing
some
than
sort of sound. Do we have a shadow person for sound?
Should be one.
I do.
Okay, good.
I think so.
Well, we will now. If we
Yeah.
don't.
Evan. That's an awesome name. You just sound like you belong in an old Western movie.
That's what I said. That's where I bought my belt buckle. The Leatherwood and Company. Doc Leatherwood.
Congratulations on your very cool name. I wish I had as cool a name as you.
Yeah, good job on that one. Thank you, Evan.
You better be a cool person, though, to match your cool name.
I'm sure he is. All right,
Debbie.
We're almost at the list here. Chris Debbie.
Yes.
Welcome to be here, my
Slow
friend.
and steady.
Slow and steady, but always ready.
Chris, thank you for being here.
That was a great name, by the way. It rivals this name, I'll say.
Erica Terwilliger.
There you go. Erica Terwilliger. That is a great name. That is awesome. Thank you to be here.
Thank you to be here, Erica.
Welcome to have you.
Yes.
Sydney Wagstaff. Hey, welcome.
Sydney Wagstaff?
Mm-hmm, I said it.
These names are getting cooler and cooler.
I say it and I say it true.
I say it now.
I say it true and I say it now.
You say it true.
Sydney, you have the
Thanks for being here.
first name of my favorite screen queen.
That is a wizard's name.
Wagstaff. Mahogany Cowich. What? I just realized that's the word name after I read it.
It sounds like a mahogany couch.
That's awesome. Mahogany Cowich. That's a beautiful name.
That is great. I
Mahogany.
love it.
That's a great name.
Welcome in.
Welcome to be here. Dogman Whisperer, not to be left out, outside in the rain. Michael Bronco is clawing at the door. What is up, Michael? Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Sarah Eberly, hi. Welcome to be in here.
Sarah.
Everly Lovely.
Sarah.
Sarah. I tried to join in, but I lost it. Thank you. Ben Dover. Okay. Is that a real name? It could be a real name. I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry
It could be a real name.
If it's real and you get that a lot, I apologize. But
Yeah,
your name
seriously.
is Ben Dover.
Awesome.
Of the Charleston Dovers, we'll say. Maybe that's where he's from. Who knows?
Ben Dover.
And he
Dover,
is
Ohio.
a Dogman Whisperer.
Dogman Whisperer. Whispering to the Dogman. Thank you, Ben.
Sharon Barnhill. What is up, Sharon?
Yes. That is a good Hobbit name right there.
Thank you for investing in the whole.
Yes.
We will invest in you with more strange tales and deep dives.
You're the Lord of my ring.
Lord of my ring.
My Lord of my ring. That's
Is that
very-
right?
I said her last name is a good Hobbit name.
Oh, Barnhill.
Barnhill.
Oh, that's
it's
true.
like Underfoot.
That is true.
Or Underhill, rather.
Or Snodgrass.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. That's the last name of today. If you guys haven't heard your name yet, definitely reach out and let us know.
Or don't.
Or don't, but that's up to you. But we will definitely get your name read if you've signed up. And
For sure. We've missed a few.
we've missed a few. We're still catching up. We've been sick and traveling. And
I mean, it's just the never-ending issues with the whole.
yeah, it is.
Hopefully, this is the end of it, though, because we have had a string of a couple months of just difficult times, but not difficult. Well, it started with Jake,
Yeah.
and then I had to move to Texas. I
Mhm.
chose to move, and then the guys came down and helped me, and then
Took a train back and got sick.
they got sick, and so we're rounding the corner
Yeah,
of the luck issue.
absolutely.
But I'm happy down here in Texas.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. Lots of new changes. Changes are good.
New challenges, new changes.
The whole is being revitalized. New opportunities.
That's for sure.
And on that note, thanks so much for being with us, guys. We'll see you members in the expansion for a strange, crazy episode about alien smells, among other things. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next time.
On
Belief Hole.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.